I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers.
We're going to begin this hour with questions over the leadership in Iran. Developing this morning, a report from Iran's state news agency says the country's new supreme leader is safe and healthy. That report quotes the Iranian president's son. This follows reports, including the New York Times, citing multiple unidentified Iranian and Israeli officials who said that Mojtaba Khamenei had been injured in the war. During a news conference Tuesday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was asked about those reports and declined to comment on them. He told reporters U.S. forces will continue strikes on America's timeline.
Today will be, yet again, our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever.
While the U.S. unleashed strikes on Iran, Tehran fired back with its own waves of attacks against Israel and the Persian Gulf yesterday, as the Israeli Defense Forces urged their citizens to stay inside, stay sheltered. Meanwhile, as the war escalates across the Middle East, Israeli strikes on Lebanon, targeting the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah, have left a wave of destruction, injuring thousands and killing almost 500 people. Back here at home, oil prices soared and dipped as President Trump threatened death, fire, and fury if Iran continues blocking the Strait of Hormuz. But Iran says they won't allow 1 liter of oil to leave the Middle East until Israel and the U.S. stop their attacks. To illustrate the importance of that waterway, the U.S. military released this video of strikes on suspected Iranian mine-laying ships in the strait. We have a team of correspondents and analysts joining us this morning to break down the latest from this ongoing war with Iran and its widening economic impact. We're going to start with NBC News correspondent Matt Bradley. He joins us from Tel Aviv. Matt, good morning. So developing this morning, an Iranian state news agency says the new supreme leader is safe and healthy. As Joe just said, that was according to the Iranian president's son. What have we learned?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, or you could use the old adage, if you have to say it, if you have to say that the Iranian president is healthy, maybe there's a question. And the fact is that state media has repeatedly referred to the newly elected supreme leader of Iran as an injured veteran or other Persian or Farsi terms that imply that he is, in fact, wounded. And they did this in public in their statements. Now, in addition to that, we have that report from the New York Times citing those Iranian officials and Israeli officials all saying they believe that that Mojtaba Khamenei had been wounded on February 28th. Now, that's not so hard to believe because all of his family members were killed, including his father, his mother, on down, sisters, brothers. This is something that was a blistering attack. It's no surprise that it might have injured the new leader.
So, Matt, we've heard the defense secretary describe the onslaught yesterday against Iran, but we also know overnight Israel said its military had identified missiles launched toward Israel from Iran. What more do we know about those strikes?
Well, we've been hearing about these strikes constantly, over and over and over again. We did see that there were 2 dead in just the past couple of days. That was the first fatalities that we had seen for more than a week. But here in Israel, the number of injured still remains very, very low. The number of deaths has now risen to 11 total over the entire scope of this attack by the Iranians and by the Israelis and the Americans. So we have been seeing these incoming. We have been seeing, according to the IDF, fewer and fewer missiles per salvo, which means that while we are still hearing, and just this morning and just last night, we heard on a regular basis more and more sirens, including in the pre-dawn hours, those salvos, according to the IDF, are containing fewer and fewer missiles, which means they're easier for the Israelis to swat down.
And let's talk about what's happening in Lebanon. Matt, the prime minister there says that more than 500 people have been killed and thousands more injured. What is happening there, the conflict between Israel and Lebanon? What's the latest?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting development what's going on. We're seeing a repeat of back in June. Huge numbers of people displaced. Hundreds, nearly 500 people have been killed. Israel launching a ground offensive that has reached well inside southern Lebanon, pushing people up to the Litani River, the border between the rest of Lebanon and southern Lebanon. But there's also some interesting parallels to what's going on in Lebanon and what's going on in Iran, and not just because Hezbollah is sponsored by Iran. It's the Iranians' main cat's paw in the Middle East, but also because in both cases, the Israelis and the Americans aren't fighting in Lebanon yet, they seem to be pursuing a similar modus operandi: diminish and degrade these fighting forces in Iran, the military, and the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and in Lebanon, that's Hezbollah, and then hope that civilians or other political forces will take over from where their these weakened organizations have left off. Now, it's unclear whether that's going to work in Iran. In Lebanon, we've already seen, you mentioned the prime minister saying that Hezbollah is now illegal. There is now a gathering momentum in Lebanese society to try to unseat Hezbollah and relax its iron grip on Lebanese politics.
Matt, one more question for you. I know you recently spoke to the former national security advisor to the Israeli prime minister, just about how the U.S. and Israel do seem to have some contrasting objectives when it comes to this war. Tell us more about these different visions of success in Iran.
Yeah, I mean, and that was on the blog, and I'm glad you mentioned that. What's interesting about this story and what I've been hearing from people is that while it looks as though the American motives, the American ambitions for the fight, and the Israeli ambitions for this fight seem to be diverging, it's a hard one to pin down, because the fact is that we've heard scattershot explanations from the U.S. about why they're engaging Iran. But from what we heard from this former intelligence leader, he said that basically the Israelis now, while we have heard Benjamin Netanyahu saying they would like to see regime change, they would just like to neuter Iran, kneecap it, make sure that Iran no longer has the capabilities to attack Israel or Israelis, either through themselves or through their proxies in the region, like Hezbollah, who I just mentioned. Now, this same analyst said that the United States was pursuing something more like regime change, a more permanent solution, and one that would deeply affect Iranian politics going forward. And he said the Israelis simply don't care about that.
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you very much.
NBC's Gary Grumbach joins us now with the latest from Washington on all this. Gary, good morning. So we know the White House has been facing this criticism over mixed messages from the president and his administration about when this war with Iran could end. Earlier this week, the president called it a little excursion that would conclude soon, but he also said the U.S. had won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. We know the press secretary was pressed on this yesterday. Any more clarity from the White House on a timeline?
So there's really two tracks here, and progress on those two tracks will determine when this war potentially could end. There's the military objectives, which do have sort of a progress in them. You see the elimination of Iran's nuclear powers, destroying their ballistic missile program, and destroying their navy. We'll be able to know when that happens. But there's also the political objectives, which are a little harder to tell when they could happen, like the uprising of the Iranian people and getting a leader in there, a supreme leader that the president actually likes. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said this is entirely up to President Trump.
When President Trump says that Iran is in a place of unconditional surrender, he's not claiming the Iranian regime is going to come out and say that themselves. President Trump will determine when Iran is in a place of unconditional surrender, when they no longer pose a credible and direct threat to the United States of America and our allies.
Now, some members of Congress are fired up about that answer, and they're looking for more definitive answers from the White House and from President Trump.
All right, Gary, also a couple of Democratic lawmakers from the Senate Armed Services Committee spoke with us at NBC following this classified briefing with Trump officials about the war in Iran yesterday. I understand Republicans also made some comments off camera. What did they say? Did they get the answers they were looking for?
So this was a classified briefing, so we don't know exactly what happened inside, but based on our reporting from our Capitol Hill team, it doesn't really appear so, because there's a big question about costs here, right? Not only the financial cost, but also the human cost of war. We're talking 7 U.S. members of the military already died in the past 12 days of this conflict. 140 U.S. members of the military have been injured. Here's what Senator Richard Blumenthal had to say about all this.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran.
Now, questions also remain about what country's munitions hit that Iranian elementary school that killed more than 140 people. U.S. officials say investigations are underway.
And Gary, sticking with Capitol Hill reaction, we know the president has described the operation in Iran as the beginning of building a new country. But yesterday we heard from Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. He came out against this idea of nation building in Iran. How is he describing the role he thinks the U.S. should play?
Yeah, he says America should be defenders of peace and prosperity and talking about peace through strength here. But he says we don't think we should be intervening all over the world. And of course, that's likely a reference not only to Iran, but also what we're seeing going on in Venezuela and Cuba as well. But he's not the only one. We saw Congressman Michael McCaul, a Republican, saying a remarkable quote here, saying, quote, we're good at breaking things. We're not good at rebuilding them. Guys.
Right. Gary Grumbach in Washington. Thank you.
With the Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping channel for oil and natural gas, effectively shut down, gasoline prices are continuing to climb. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal has a look at the impact those prices are having on American consumers.
Fallout from the war plain to see at every gas station across the U.S. The price of a gallon of gas now up 55 cents since the war began.
It definitely makes us second guess some of the financial decisions that we make.
In California, with the country's highest prices, gas is well above $5 a gallon.
200 miles, 200 to 300 miles a day.
Yasha Timinovich drives for rideshare and delivery services for about 10 hours a day.
What is it like for you when you drive around and you see gas at $5.79 a gallon?
Makes me sick.
Wild swings in crude oil prices also hitting hard for farmers just beginning the spring planting season.
I have a tractor that requires 100 gallons of diesel fuel to fill it up, and it costs me $469.
John Boyd grows soybeans, corn, and wheat at his fourth-generation family farm in Virginia. He says his fertilizer supplier can't even deliver what he needs.
Due to the war and the bombing through that area, the fertilizer isn't moving, which means it won't be readily available at all to me right now.
And at Josie's Flowers in North Hollywood, Fernando Ayala has already raised prices for deliveries by 20%.
If I have to eat the gas every time, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
California does have some of the highest prices in the nation, but on average across the country, people could be spending between $5 and $15 more in comparison to last week to fill up their gas tanks. But with more pressure on the oil market, those prices could continue to increase. Back to you.
All right, Camila Bernal, thank you so much. Alex Vatanka, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, joins us now with more analysis on everything we've touched on so far this morning with the war with Iran. Alex, good morning. So yesterday we got another update from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He said the war with Iran is not nation building. Let's listen to some of that.
This is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. Our generation of soldier will not let that happen again, and nor will this president, who very clearly ran against those kinds of never-ending, nebulously scoped missions. Those days are dead.
So he seems quite clear there, but there has been some mixed messaging, including recent comments from the president. What do you think America's mission is in this war?
Savannah, that's exactly the point. I'm not so sure because we're 12 days into this war. And frankly, I heard what Pete Hegseth just said, but so much depends on how this military campaign unfolds going forward. It could easily take a political dimension. I mean, what is the metric? So how do we measure success? What are the set of metrics that we're going to use? So, for example, what happens to those 400 kilograms of enriched uranium? If you want to get your hands on that, that does mean presumably American boots on the ground to find those assets that the United States wants to take out of Iran. What about if you really want to secure the Strait of Hormuz? Can you just do that through the air power of the United States? Do you have to actually capture part of the sort of the land around the strait? You want to destroy the launchers, the production of missiles. Can you do that from air? Do you need to get on the ground? So again, so much depends on what the end mission looks like. You don't need to come out and say you want a new government in Iran before you actually need to put boots on the ground. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
In the meantime, Alex, President Trump, we know, has threatened death, fire, and fury on Iran if it continues to block the Strait of Hormuz. We know Iran fired back, vowing to keep that critical passageway blocked until the U.S. and Israeli strikes stop. How much right now this conflict is, and the future of how long it lasts, is focused on that Strait of Hormuz? I mean, is this in some ways Iran's primary leverage point right now?
Joe, in many ways it is. And actually, Joe, let me also point out, because this is sort of ironic, the Iranians are selling their oil. I was just reading Iranian regime media talking about 12 million barrels of Iranian oil having been sold as this conflict has raged on. In 12 days, they've sold about 12 million barrels. Most of that goes to China. The Chinese are actually making a profit out of this war from buying discounted Iranian oil. But look, the Strait of Hormuz has been Iran's a card to play going back to the 1980s. They've always said that this is something they can do. They're doing that, obviously not to hurt themselves, but they're trying to inflict maximum pain on not just the United States, because this is really important for them to get American public opinion to turn against this war, but also the Gulf states, because they think the Gulf states have the capacity maybe to put pressure on the White House to say to Donald Trump, end this war now.
All right, Alex Vitanka, thank you so much.
In the state of Georgia, a special election to fill the House seat left vacant by former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is now headed for a runoff. Democrat and retired Army veteran Shawn Harris, who lost to Greene in 2024, will advance. He's going to face Trump-backed District Attorney Clay Fuller next month. They were the top two contenders, with no candidate winning more than 50% of the vote in yesterday's election. Greene, of course, resigned late last year after a falling out with President Trump over several issues, including his handling of the Epstein files. The runoff election is set to take place on April 7th. The winner will serve until the end of Greene's term next year.
Well, overnight in the Midwest, a severe weather system produced powerful storms that spawned tornadoes from Indiana to Illinois. The storms also brought heavy hail to the region near Chicago. Chunks of ice fell from the sky. They were about the size of baseballs.
There's a tornado in nearby Kankakee, Illinois. It tore up power lines as it moved across a busy highway yesterday afternoon. Officials there are using a local school as a shelter. That's because so many buildings in the area are damaged. On top of the winds, there are reports of that giant hail that we mentioned. Angie Lastman is going to have the full forecast in just a minute.
First, though, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa. She is in Illinois. She joins us with the latest. Maggie, tell us where you are and give us a sense of what it's like this morning.
Yeah, guys, we're in Kankakee this morning. It's about an hour south of Chicago. And you can see how intense the winds were here overnight. Look how massive this tree is. You can tell by just looking at the bottom of it. It was clearly ripped out by its roots. And then you walk over here, it's not the only one, right? Look at this tree down back here. It was split from part of its trunk and it fell, if you can see, on a house back there. We don't know if anybody was inside or if anyone was hurt. We're not hearing of any reports of injuries in this area, but this is the area you were just talking about with that baseball-sized hail, with several tornadoes reported overnight. It is a mess out here this morning with power lines down as well. Crews working on that as we speak. It was a really frightening night here, guys.
And Maggie, just to the east of you, we know Northwest Indiana also saw these same powerful storms overnight. What are you hearing about some of the damage there?
Yeah, guys, we're just getting breaking news on that here in the last hour or so. Actually, the state's Department of Homeland Security, so the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, just confirmed to NBC News that a coroner confirmed to them they do have fatalities in that state. So it seems like they were hit even harder. We don't have any details on the fatalities there as far as how many, where that happened, et cetera. We're working to get those. But right now, what we know is that local officials are stressing for people to stay off the roads for their own safety and for that of first responders. Here's part of what first responders are telling us this morning.
Lake Village has experienced a tornado. There's several houses that have been hit, a lot of damage. Please do not come here. Do not try to help right now. We appreciate your help. We appreciate your thoughts and your prayers. Let the first responders do what they need to do.
Yeah, and guys, as you know, this is such a daunting task because you wake up to damage like this when power is out, especially, and it's still dark. We still have rain coming down in this area. It's really tough to try and get those assessments going quickly. And case in point, guys, back where we are in Illinois, power lines are down to my left over here. So we've been staying back from that area. We know there's more damage down that way. This is really widespread from what we can tell this morning.
All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you so much.
As promised, let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lastman. She's got a closer look at what you can expect with your Morning News Now weather.
Yeah, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Unfortunately, another day where we're going to kind of ramp things up, and already a lot of spots underway with dealing with the potential for the severe weather this morning. You can see as we zoom in, we've got tornado watches that are up, including parts of western Ohio, stretching across Indiana and into Illinois, parts of Kentucky included in that as well. Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Evansville, all included in that tornado watch with multiple thunderstorm warnings ongoing. You can see really there's some heavy rain associated with this line stretching all the way up towards the Great Lakes. We've got places like Cleveland, Chicago, St. Louis dealing with that rain as well. And again, today is a day where all of those ingredients are there, where we could see some of those stronger storms developing as we get through the second half of the day. So here's a look through the afternoon and evening hours tonight. We'll see those stronger storms developing along the cold front, and we'll see that higher risk kind of focused across parts of the Gulf states, but slight risk extending from the mid-Atlantic all the way into the Ohio Valley and down towards the Gulf Coast. We do have the potential to see a couple of these stronger tornadoes, on top of the fact that the wind gusts and the large hail also on the table. When we're talking larger and stronger tornadoes, it's the EF2s for places like Houston, Jackson, New Orleans. Washington, D.C. has the potential for that as well. And this is going to be something that we see through the afternoon and in evening hours tonight. Now, that system continues moving to the east tomorrow. It's going to bring some good rain that we really actually need across the southeast. And it's also going to bring a mix of some rain and snow to folks across parts of the northeast. And then that cooler air really settles in for folks there as we get into the backside of that system and really the rest of our work week. Between now and then, though, through today specifically, we've got that chance for some flash flooding as well across parts of the South. Jackson, Shreveport, Alexandria, all included in that slight risk. So not only do we have the chance to see the stronger storms develop, but also the heavy rain could lead to some flooding. All the threats are on the table today, guys.
And what's happening in Illinois, a reminder of just how quickly things can turn and how much people need to be on alert.
Exactly. Yes.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.